Good morning, everyone. Today is part 2 of our peony, and what I'm going to do is we started with our very light values, and now I wanted to go in and add in some midtones. So what I'm going to show you is just a little trick. The midtones would be just a little bit darker value, meaning more pigment versus water. I'd say for this, it was probably 80% water, maybe 20% pigment to get this very light tone. The mid-tone, I'm going to be using maybe 50-50. And one way, by the way, I'm going to share the supplies I'm using. If this, isn't something you need, I am putting a date stamp in there so you can just fast forward through this. But for my beautiful little beginners, I'm going to go ahead and start off first by sharing some of the supplies I have. So today I'm using my Princeton brush, Velvetouch 8 round, and I love this brush. It's a short handle, which I like, typical of watercolor brushes. They're shorter handled, and it's just got a really nice feel. It's got a nice tip on it. It holds just the amount of water for me, and really the other brushes like Neptune and some of those, it's just up to you, personal preference. But the 8 Velvetouch Princeton round is kind of my go-to. If you do have the Delgados, which as you know, I love, they're a great beginner brush. You can also use that. Really terrific brush. I love it. If you don't want to invest in Princeton brushes, Delgados are great. I'll link both of those for you. Today, because I wanted a little bit bigger piece of paper, I am using this Meeden 100% cotton paper, cold press, 140 pound. Really love it. As you know, I'm a huge Artisto fan, but I had this, so I thought I would go ahead and use it, and I really do like it. I think it's very comparable to the Artisto pads. The texture and everything is really great. So that's what I'm using for my paper. I've got my 2 containers of water, 1 to rinse, 1 to wash. And today I'm going to be using this wonderful little MeiLiang palette. For those of you that may be using the Winsor Newton, I will cross-reference those for you. Love the MeiLiang palette, as I always tell my beginners. It's a great little palette that already has a lot of colors pre-mixed, because mixing your colors can be a little intimidating as a beginner. And I wanted to share something with you. So one of the biggest tips, and this is what I really wanted to share with you, is taking your florals from, kind of ho-hum, like this is beautiful, but and you could very much just leave it at this if you wanted that very subtle, light, pastel-y type of painting. You could do just this. What I wanted to share with you, though, is creating some depth, maybe some texture, some interest. And I talk about this a lot in my tutorials. We do that by adding in values. So many times when I get a painting and somebody asks me to give my thoughts on it, it's going to be typically this type of thing. So this looks basically flat. I do have a few different values here, meaning a little bit more pigment here. But for the most part, it looks one-dimensional. It doesn't look like a lot of depth and interest in it. What I'm going to do, and if this is one technique and tip you pick up from watching my videos, I think you will be so ahead of the game in a very easy, simple technique to take it to, like I think I said in my title, kind of ho-hum, nice, but kind of flat and a little bit plainer, to really taking it to the next level. And wow, look at the depth and interest. Look at how my eye's moving around. So that is adding these values. All value means is this is probably 90% pigment, 10% water. as I go on, I keep adding more water to dilute it till I get to this very light value. I do this with all of my paints so I can see the different values and make sure I'm using them and know how much water I put into them and how much pigment so that I get a good feeling for this value chart. What we're going to do, the reason why I wanted to show this to you is because today we're going to be working with those mid values, which will be right in here for the most part. And I would really offer you to create a value chart for your paintings, because what you can do is when you're painting, you can look at, okay, do I have at least 3 different values in my painting? And if not, let me pull out my values and add some of those in. So here, for the most part, I've kind of got this value right here. I might have a couple that are leaning towards this, but today I really want to focus on adding at least 2 more values in here. And then the last one will be for the details and really depth. We'll add in these darkest values. All right, so this can be really helpful in your paintings, is just to say, okay, the majority of my painting is this. I see that. And I want to add in some more of this. So that's what we'll be working with today. I'm going to add in some of that. And then the last day, we will go in and add some of the really dark values for some shadows and maybe some little details in veining the petals. Okay. I'm working with, if you are using your Winsor Newton, you're going to probably use Quin Magenta. I am using my MeiLiang palette, so I'm using Rose Red, which is very similar to the Quin Magenta. And always keep a little swatch sheet by you too, so you, before going into your painting, you can practice. So if you're wanting, right now I want to go into this and this, so I could have a little practice sheet here and sample my color value, and I can say, yep, that's where I want to be, or I might need a little bit more paint in there. So there we go. Now that's a little bit darker, but that's okay. And now I can take that mix and go right into my painting, because if you accidentally go into dark, it's much harder to lift and lighten. Okay, so I take a practice sheet and try and get to where you want to be, and you can say, yep, that's the perfect mix, let me keep using that mix there. All right, so we're going to go into our painting, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start where the petals go into the center, the core of the flower is going to be where you're going to have some darkness. So I'm going to go in there with a technique I use. I'm not sure what it's officially called. I call it push and pull. And what I'm going to do is go in with this value that I've created in my palette here. Let me try and move this up so you can see it. Right here, so I've already got it in my palette. I'm going to go in, and let's just start right here. So this is where my petal is tucking into the center of the flower. I want to go in there. Let's start on this one. And my brush isn't dripping, it's damp, all right? So when when you have too much water, if it immediately puddles and pools, or if it drips, that's most likely too much. We just want to shine. Now, before that dries, I'm going to go in and rinse my brush, just tap it off on a towel, and I'm going to go in and start pushing just the very edge of that and pulling it out. Now, I'm not covering up this white space, but look how beautiful that is. So that is a perfect little mid-tone. That's exactly what I wanted. Now I'm going to go in here and do the same thing. So I pick up a little bit more of that paint, and you can test it on your swatch if you need to, and go into just the base here. of my petal. Just like that. I'm going to wash and rinse my brush, tap it off on a towel so it's just damp. You do not, in this process, you do not want too much water. You just want it damp. And then I go in holding my brush horizontally, and I just am barely, you're not touching into the whole line of paint, just the tip of that paint. Barely touching it and just coaxing it out like that. Look at that beautiful blend. And now, can you see how it was perfect? It was a beautiful peony before with all these light pastel colors, but look at now how interesting that is. Now really I could tap in there with a little bit more if I wanted. Look at how beautiful that is. This is the beauty of watercolors that I have never found with any other medium. And I'm just gonna leave this be and let it work its way out. So now I'm gonna go into the next petal here, and I'm going to come out in this direction. Pick up a little bit more of that paint that I pre-mixed because I tested it here. And let's see, let's go maybe into here. No petals. Just like that. And now wash and rinse my brush, tap it off on a towel, and go in. Make sure when you're doing this, you're going in with your brush. I'm holding my brush almost parallel to the paper, and just a very lightly damp brush, and using this very tiny little tip to barely touch into the edge. And I start pushing and pulling out like that. Now, if it's too much, wash and rinse your brush again. And now pull out that edge. Look how beautiful. And look at how much more interest. So it looks, you've got this depth in there. So let's keep going. Let's go into this little piece here. Pick up more of that pink paint. And I'm going to go in just like that. Wash and rinse my brush. Lightly tap it off. And spread it. So, so pretty. Look at that. That all of a sudden just pops that out. I think I'll bring that over here. So the key here is you want to just barely have a damp brush. If you have too much water, you're just going to get a puddle. So make sure you just have a little bit. Now I'm going to go in here. And the same thing, I'm kind of running out of my paint. So we're gonna go through this process again. I'll add a little bit of my rose madder. Now look at that's quite thick. Let me see if I can move my water here for you. Excuse my arm. Push this up. Okay. And I'm going to add more water because that is too dark of a wash. And then if I need to, I can test that out again. So that's too dark. I don't want that dark. So add a little bit more water and get that mid value. So I can add some more water here, dilute it, and then go back to my paper. Yeah, that works. That's about the mid value I want. I can dab off on my paper towel. Let me show you. I've got a towel here, but you can certainly use a paper towel and just dab off if you have too much. Just like that. And then I'm going to go in maybe to this one Wash and rinse my brush so it's just damp, and start that push and pull again. Tab off, push and pull. There we go. Isn't that kind of amazing, isn't it? It creates such a difference immediately. I think I'm going to go into here, this one. So I pick up some of that paint, tap off to get rid of, because we don't want our brush too wet. Ooh, I almost dropped my brush. And then let's go in and do that. And maybe, well, we'll save that one for tomorrow. Let's go, I don't want to get too ahead, so let me just finish that one. Wash and rinse my brush, tap off, and push and pull. Isn't that beautiful? You can rinse again and push and pull. There we go. And it just makes your eye kind of fall into that depth there. I'm going to go ahead and go into this petal now, since this is dry. You can tell when it's dry because it won't be shiny. Also, it won't be cool to the touch. If it's cool to the touch, that means that it's still wet. So I'm making this just a bit wider because this petal is quite large. Wash and rinse my brush, tap it off, and push and pull. Spreading that out just like that. Isn't that gorgeous? Such an easy technique. It's why I love teaching this one to beginners, because it's so easy, but yet it makes such a difference. Let's go into maybe this one right here. Wash and rinse my brush, tap it off, and just barely touching in there, just so lightly. Okay, I think I might add a little bit here, just really going into the base of a lot of these petals. And hopefully you got my drawing, so that is helping you. Wash and rinse my brush. I'm going to turn my paper here so my arm isn't in your way. And pulling that out. Look at how beautiful, how easy. And already, look at the difference. Isn't it so much more interesting? Let's go in here, maybe add some in there. There we go. Wash, rinse my brush, dab off. Again, I can't stress how much to make sure this is just damp, not wet. And push and pull. We could go in here. I'm really just kind of doing this intuitively, like where I'm wanting to put some of these darker areas. Damp brush, go in. Sorry for the camera shake there. And lift out. Now, if you get like that little line, like I just did, wash and rinse your brush, Just feather it out. Okay. But just what an amazing difference this is. Maybe here, let's see. Let's go in, maybe create a little shadow here along the side of that petal. Wash, rinse, just it's damp. There we go. Oh my gosh, look at that. I just love finding really fun little techniques that can make such a difference. Maybe go in here because I've got a little bit of a lip up there. So let's just darken this. Now you can always be checking that you're in the right color value. Wash and rinse my brush. And then go in. I do have a class on this. I think I have a couple seats left for Tuesday. If you really want to get some more hands-on guidance, we can do that. I think I'll create a little shadow here using that mid-range value from this petal. Wash and rinse my brush. And go in. And just feather that edge out. Yeah, look at that. So much more interest. Yeah, I love that. Now these areas are going to be somewhat white, so I'm going to leave those. I think what I will do, let me think here, is maybe put some darker values, mid values in here. So let's go to our cad yellow. Pick up a little bit more of that. But we want to stay in this mid value range. So definitely test out. Yeah, I'm about there. That's going to make such a difference for you. And then just kind of add in some little, I might soften some of those edges, but I think I'll just leave it like it is. And that's that mid value. The next value we will go into would be this one, which is the darkest value I want to use. The last thing I will do here is go into this leaf right here. So I use sap and olive green. You know, really just use the green that you like. I tend to always mix my sap and olive. I like that color. But you can certainly use a blue-green. And I'm going to lay a little bit of this down from the part that's coming out from under the petal. Maybe here too. Now wash and rinse my brush. Tap it off. And do that push and pull. Push and pull. Push and pull, just barely grabbing the very edge of that green line I made. And look at that. It already created some depth there. You could do these little ones too. They're awfully little, but you can certainly do the same technique. Dab off my brush. And just feather that edge. Oop. Just like that. So already look at how, like you could even, this could be your painting. Already we've created so much more interest and depth and variation. There's a little bit of guiding your eye around. Your eye kind of goes in here. So this is day 2. Go ahead and add this to your painting. And our last day, we will go in and we will add in some more details, some veining. I have a really fun brush to share with you that I don't normally use because it's a very fine liner, but I'm trying all kinds of new things because I've painted with the same things for years and years and years, and I thought it would be fun to try some new things. So there you go. Day 2. Oh, I think actually, you know what? So sorry. I think I'm going to add in a little bit of orange in there because I had it on here. So I want these values. How awesome is using this value scale, by the way? Okay, that's a little dark, so I know I need to add some more water. There we go. And just tap in here. Even if that yellow is still wet, that could be really pretty. There we go. A little bit darker than I really intended, but that's okay. I'm not going to get too picky. Okay. There you go. All right, guys, I will see you in the next video, our last one, where we will go in and really get in here and add another layer. But look at how beautiful this is. Just adding that second value. Last value will be these, which are about 90% pigment, 10% water, and really play with this value scale. All right, and if you are interested in joining my peony class on Tuesday, I'll put the link in here. It's really fun. We'll be doing something similar to this. And what's fun about these classes is I can kind of guide you a little bit more. There's a lot more interaction. I keep it to the max 5. And it's a lot of fun, and you can hold up your painting, ask me questions, you watching me paint. It's very much step by step and a lot more guidance. All right, everybody, we'll have fun with this. I can't wait to see what you think, and most of all, happy painting. Okay, I'll talk to you soon.